Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second PerryData.net webinar in our webinar series. This one is Learn How to Create Your Own Reports and Maximize Your Detail Extracts via Pivot Tables. And our distinguished faculty today is Alan Cooper, who is with Ancilla Partners in Milwaukee, and Lisa Locken, who is a clinical nurse specialist at Wheaton Franciscan St. Joe's, and also the chair of our WAPC Perinatal Data Committee. And so next slide. The objectives for this session. At the conclusion of the session, participants will be able to demonstrate how to retrieve site-specific data from the PerryData.net system and demonstrate how to customize and use the data obtained from the PerryData.net system. And our agenda today, so first we're going to look at prerequisites, basic PerryData and Pentaho reporting training. Then we'll look at detailed data extracts. What are they and how do you retrieve and use them? And then finally create your own reports. What exactly are they and how you would work with those. And before we get into the content today, I want to let you know that you all will be in listen-only mode unless you raise your hand. And so please note the hand icon in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We do encourage you to go ahead and ask your questions by speaking directly to the presenters using your if you're connected by phone with your audio or your computer microphone. And also, if the presenter decides to ask a question of the audience during the presentation, you can raise your hand to answer the question. So please feel free to do that. You can also ask or answer questions by typing them into the question field, and that's also in your GoToWebinar control panel. Just click on the orange arrow and you will find the question pane. So just click on the plus sign and it opens up for you and you can type in what you like. We will go ahead and I will be watching that question pane and communicate the questions as I see them. So if we don't get to your question due to time constraints, WAPC staff and the speakers will respond via email following the session. So, all right, well, thank you, and I'll turn things over to Alan right now. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. And this is kind of going to be more of a tutorial of how to kind of leverage the tools as it relates to the extract and how it relates to, leveraging Excel spreadsheet. And then with the create your own with a tool called Saiku, that's part of the Pentaho reporting package, and just kind of run through, what is it and, how we can use it. So I'm kind of going to go back and forth between the slides and then the actual tools themselves, just so I can demonstrate some of those things. From the prerequisite perspective, the only thing that we're making that a note of is that we're making the assumption that you understand kind of PerryData of itself and how it collects the information and what the information is about. We also make the assumption that you know how to actually log into PerryData as well as Pentaho, which is how you get into the actual Saiku tools or the detail extract report. So the first thing I want to do is get into one of the areas, which is the detailed data extract. Basically, there are two main detailed data extracts. There's the full extract at the moment, which represents about 474 fields, of which I think there are probably about 550 or so fields inside of PerryData that you are collecting information on. Our goal is to obviously expand this to the complete list, at least to the list that we know is very useful for leveraging the data when you're constructing your reports. Because of such the magnitude of the actual report itself in terms of columns and sometimes the challenges of actually navigating to the appropriate columns, we also created a condensed data extract that contains what we believe are the key 134 fields that majority of your queries will you'll be most interested in seeing. Both of these reports, especially the condensed one, is kind of an evolving report. So as an example, if there are some fields that are not in the condensed version, as an example, and we'd recommend that you probably send a help desk ticket to ask if it's possible to add those to the end of the report. Or if there are some fields in that condensed one, as an example, that don't add a lot of value, we'll take each of those into consideration and review that in our data committee that we meet regularly, and we'll make a determination of enhancing that. The other thing to keep in mind is depending on the size of your hospital and also the amount of data you want to kind of pull, one of the things we caution you on is some of these may take a little bit to actually download. These are basically CSV/Excel reports that are generated on the fly, so they're not pre-generated. So in some cases, if you're kind of trying to get a year or two worth of data, or a few months worth of data, but out of like 5 of your hospitals, as an example, just be mindful that it may take a little bit to download it. And when I say a little bit, it may take up to 5-10 minutes, depending on how large it would be. One of the things we do caution people on is that we have noticed that there are constraints on the amount of data that can be pulled. Again, just after a while, the servers would time out. So we're cautioning everyone that when they do the full extract, that they should try to keep their counts of data to no more than 4,000 rows, as well as for the condensed version, 15,000 rows. So the condensed version should hopefully, allow for an expansive amount of time, in terms of years for a particular hospital. There may be some, obviously, limitations from the full detail extract in terms of date. So, that's probably it. So I'll move on to the next slide here, and this is where I'll kind of jump into the actual tool itself and demo that. Let's see here. Okay, so hopefully everyone has seen this screen before, because you've already been leveraging Pentaho for the standard reports. And it's basically where you would see the normal reports that you would be doing for your regular evaluations and what have you. And again, they're in the same area as the detailed extract report. So you would go into Browse Files, or it's up here as well. Click on Browse Files, and then after that, to the right, you'll see there's Files. So basically, underneath the folder, so you'll have Public, and underneath that, I'll have Standard Reports. And inside the Standard Reports folder, there will be a bunch of files that you can choose from in terms of reports to see. And then this will display, you have the Detailed Data Extract Report. This is considered the full one. And then you have the condensed version, which is the one that has 134 columns. So these are where the 2 reports would be if you want to actually leverage these. And there's 2 ways, obviously, like any standard reports. You can just open it into this particular screen or open it to a new window. I'll just open the detail extract into this screen. And then what it's going to display here is if you have multiple facilities, it will allow you to choose more than one to have in this report. If you just have one facility, it'll just display that. And then you just kind of target on the actual dates themselves that you want to highlight. So in this case, I'm just, because we have a very small test bed of data, I'm just going to go back 1 year and do July 1st. 2014, and then I will go to June 30th of 2015. And you'll notice sometimes how the screen kind of quickly refreshes. That's what happens with the filters themselves. So that isn't the report itself being generated. That's just the filters themselves refreshing the screen so it knows what parameters to use in the report. And then you just click on View Reports. And then what's happening here is it'll kind of darken out a little bit, and you know that that's processing the actual extract itself, the CSV file, or actually it's an Excel file. And then you'll see it on the bottom. I'm using Chrome as an example. Each browser does it a little different. Firefox, I believe, has a pop-up box that asks if you want to open, or save as. And I believe Explorer has something very similar to that as well. And then you just kind of open it up. And I move to my other screen here, and then I'll just move this over so you guys can see. And then here's the extract itself. So, you know, this is probably very straightforward for everyone, and obviously this is not part of what you're here for. What you're here for essentially is what now? You know, how do I use this one, especially with the 450 or 400 plus columns? How can I make this more useful for me? So what we try to do is show there's two ways of kind of using the data here. And one way is leveraging pivot tables. And so that's what I'll get into first. And then the other way is kind of leveraging, it's just a basic Excel formula that just kind of references the columns you want to actually view. And I'll show that as well. So in terms of the pivot tables, first you would have to do is sometimes it'll go into the safe mode of Excel, so make sure you allow yourself to edit. And kind of the quick way, start type of approach to getting a pivot table going for the first time is I typically just go to this corner here, right here between A and 1, and that highlights everything in the report. That's the quickest way of actually highlighting your columns without actually having to go and drag them all the way across to make sure you have every single column. So once you conduct that, then you just go into the Insert area, and then you can click on Pivot Tables. And then what's going to come up is kind of what you've already done. Is it'll say, tell me what to select in the table in terms of the table range. And that's what I've already done, so that's already highlighted. And then it'll say, do you want a new worksheet or an existing one? And so in this case, I just want in the existing one, or the new one in this particular spreadsheet. And then I click OK. And then what we'll see here is kind of an area where the pivot table is to the left. And then you'll also see the fields that you can choose from to actually to work with the actual data itself. So the first thing I typically do is there's two ways of handling. We try to create the fields in the order that makes the most sense to a lot of people that are actually leveraging Perry data. With the mother information, infant information up front, and some of the back-end information that as you build up the actual birth event, is to the back. What I typically like to do is if I already know what I kind of want to look for, I'll go to this little widget, little icon here, and actually switch my sort to A to Z. And this will list all the fields in alphanumeric order, which is, for me, a lot easier to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two examples of how you can build a pivot table. One would be related to conduct the attendance for each OB participant, or actually OB primary care physician. So what I'll do is highlight the fields that I need here. So the first thing I'll probably do is create a filter of the overall information. And in this case, I'll do it by date of birth here. So I'll scroll down to that. And then I'll just drag that into the filters area. So that's conducted there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the attendant. going to drag that right here. And then I'm going to get the primary OB. And put that right underneath there. And then I'm going to do a count of deliveries. So see how many deliveries are for particular attendants related to primary care. There it is. And there it is. So this, by default, in any pivot table you ever create, it's always going to default to a count. And in most cases that you're going to deal with, you're going to probably want counts as it relates to deliveries or even possibly birth count, births that's done. So that's an example of how to create a pretty basic, simple pivot table. Another
Alan,
example.
This is Lisa. I have a couple things. That delivery ID is very useful, again, on the count side, probably more so than some of the other things with mother, because if you've got some twins in there and you go by a few of the other sorts, it may give you the extra one. The other thing is if this doesn't look right, you can move things around. Alan, can you show in that bottom right? We have a question about when you drag, where are you dragging? And I think you can also just click on that button and put it down and then move it within those 4 things on the bottom right.
Yeah,
correct?
You can go like this. Yeah. When you typically click on it, like if you click on like depression, it typically will go into the rows area, and then you can always move it. So and you can always, if you didn't want like, let's just say you didn't want attendant, you can actually just drag it out and get it out of there, and it'll actually delete it. If you click on the down arrow, this down arrow here, you can actually just do the remove field there as well. Either one does that, which is kind of nice. But yeah, so if you go to attendant, let's see here. Yeah, you just clicked on that, and then it'll go to the row then.
Okay, so you can move things back and forth. The nice thing is you pretty much can't break anything. If it doesn't look like what you're looking for, you can slice them around. And now Alan has put stuff in alphabetical order. Again, if you've been more used to going kind of in the order of the data entry screens, you can still have it in that order if that is easier for you to find the things that you're looking for here. Another person has said the screen probably is pretty small looking for many of you. We will be making available slides with some of the screen prints of this after the meeting is done. So you will be able to refer to some of this afterwards if you're having a little bit of trouble seeing what's going on here.
Yeah, for the 4 bottom areas here, so you have the fields here, this is called a filter, this is column, rows, and value. So there's like a 4-quadrant or a quadrant thing going on with the necessary elements to be able to create a pivot table. And the cool thing is if you wanted to do more of a, I don't know, do you call this like a multi-tab, Lisa? Where you have stuff on the top and then stuff on the row and on the
Yeah, you can do that. For example, in the columns, we could have added it by month. Oftentimes, people will want to know who's doing what, which month, and that can be done as well. Another useful thing with a thing like this is because we're looking at primary care, primary OB providers and attendants, if you have places where you have either a physician on call or maybe a clinic or something like that, that helps them to sort out kind of where to give credit to. Okay.
Okay, and then the other example is, so let's just assume that this is the pivot table that you were looking for to get the answers you were looking for, and you're like, there actually is something else I want to do. You can either keep this and or change it and get the additional answer you're looking for whatever it is that you're looking for, or you can actually go back to the actual detail data tab. It's already highlighted, and you can create another pivot table, and it'll create a new tab, so you can actually kind of have more than one pivot table in one particular spreadsheet. So that's kind of a nice thing. So another example we had here is a NICU admit by route of delivery. So in this case, we would start out with final route, and then NICU admission, and then in this case we'll do count of infant MRN. And then this will kind of, this is more of like a cross-tab type report. So you can see on the top side, how many, or maybe in the left side you see, what are the different types of deliveries, and then, were they admitted to the NICU or not. So, and then now you could save this off if you want, and that's kind of the nice thing about these reports, is that if this is a report that is more standard for you and you want to report on this on a monthly basis, I would recommend that you save this report, and then the next month all you'd have to do is update the detailed data. So to kind of show you what I'm speaking of, I'm going to take a few rows off of here on the detail extract and just assume we just did 2014. So let's just see here. All right, so I'm going to open this up, and all you have here is 2014 data. So if I wanted to go back here and get, or I wanted to get the whole, like from July 1st, 2014 through the end of June, and let's just say that that is one extra month that I didn't have before, you'd come back here and get your monthly detailed extract. And then you would just open this up. And then similar to how you create a pivot table, you would highlight all the records by clicking on the corner, the left-hand upper corner. And then you would just right-click and just copy it. And then you can go back to your saved pivot table and go back to your detailed data tab that you saved off. And then you can place your cursor right on the A, or you can highlight it, and then you can just paste it then. And then this will basically overlay, if that's what you want, overlay the information you have with updated information. And I typically would recommend that versus possibly incrementing it if you are a hospital that sometimes goes back and dates, whether it's a month or two out, or back, I should say, that had incomplete information and you completed that. So it always ensures that you have the latest and greatest. So once you kind of conduct the copy and paste here, then you can go back to the sheet here and then just either right-click, or there's an area up here. If you go to the Pivot Tools area, you'll see it's highlighted here, Pivot Tools area. in the Analyze, and you can just click on Refresh. Either way, you just want the pivot table itself to refresh. And you'll notice now it added those 2 extra records that weren't there before. And now this would represent your new data set. And you have to do that for, if you have more than one pivot table inside of one spreadsheet, you'll have to hit the refresh both times. Okay.
Oh,
the other thing just to make note on here is just, definitely make sure you save things if you do plan on using it again, and save it almost right away just so you don't forget to save it, because I know a lot of people are busy running around. So, Lisa, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say that once you get an idea of a good pivot table, I would recommend saving all in one kind of big file there, so that if there's things that you're using pretty much every month or whatever, you can kind of get one big file going here, so that when you bring in your new data, you can refresh to each one and get your information. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then also what we're encouraging you to do is to feel free to share a built pivot table or a built big file with others in your organization. So it shouldn't be that if you've got a number of people who might be wanting the same information, they don't have to start from scratch to build it. Once someone has built it, others can use it by sharing that file. As long, you might need to go and bring down the detailed data extract that you're looking for, but then you can use the same saved sheets.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, the big thing when you do that, and if you are passing it around via an insecure method, which I think a lot of hospitals have secure email, but make sure you delete the information in here, but keep the tab still in there. And it won't affect your pivot table until you hit refresh, but then the pivot table is still set up as a template, if you will, for new information. So that's the one method. The other method is if it's not really summary information you're looking for, or aggregation of counts and what have you, and you really just want you want a detailed version of the report, but you don't want every single field. So a recommendation there that we have is basically kind of using Excel formula to kind of just represent the columns that you really care about. So to do that, essentially you create a new tab. Just hit the plus here, create a new tab, and it's all it really is doing is saying, if I want to get my mother's MRN, their last name, and let's just say we want this information only, just to keep it simple. And I'll go through some real examples. You would copy those column headers, and we need those, and then you would just reference them. So all you have to do to reference them is click on, you see the equal sign here, so you just type equal, and then you go back to the sheet, the detail extract, and you just click it, highlight it, and then you just click enter, and then it'll show you the actual value that you want. Now you could literally type this in if you want. It's just easier just to do what I did, but you can literally type in the tab, with a exclamation mark with the actual cell that you're looking for. And then you just kind of do the same thing. So in this case, they're all in order, but in most of your cases, they won't be in order, and that's why you're kind of doing this method. But just for time's sake, I'm just going to copy and paste these out. And then what you would do in this case is just kind of scroll down and just kind of create your template. And in this way, that if you update your detail extract, and let's just say, again, you added 2 more additional fields, you'll always have like the fields that you really care about in this one template area that you can always go back to and refer to it, because maybe it's used for whatever it is for additional reports, or maybe you have some types of graphs that you're using that you only care about these 10 fields all the time. This is just a quicker mechanism to bring down the world, if you will, from PeriData, and then be able to isolate the fields that you really care about at the detail level. So it's just, again, a different avenue, really focused on the detail of the extract itself. So
Alan,
some example.
Just to be clear, what if I did have something that was way over to the right? Do I highlight each one separate and bring it over?
Correct. Yeah, what we did is we kind of tested it out ourselves to see how much time that takes. And it took us about, for the examples that we're going to show today, we have 3 examples. You know, it took us about 10 minutes to set the template up. But once the template is set up, then it takes the time of the extract every month. That is your time, you know, because you always get the latest and greatest information.
Okay. And so that's similar to what, if you were recreating some of those reports that you had before and you had it saved in a file with the various names of the columns, that's what you would go back to recreate.
Exactly. So let me just maybe use an example here. So let's assume that these 2 are gone, and you'll notice that they're also gone from here. And what I typically do is I usually use filters. So I would say just don't show me any ones with zeros, so you always see a more crisp report. And so you're missing these 2 2015 records, and then let's just say you go and do what I did of getting the most up-to-date detail extract report, and then you would copy and paste it just like you would here. And then you don't have to do any refresh here. It's just going to be there. The only thing you'd have to maybe do is, if you do have a filter there, you'll have to, you know, refresh your filter, because now you have more information. But you don't. There is no refresh for this particular case. Is that good, Lisa?
Okay. Well, so that's how you bring it on in. And the questions that are coming up now are about, okay, where do I save this? Is this something that's saved just into Excel, or is there somewhere within Pentaho that any of these sort of templates that I've made are saved?
Yeah, these templates are all going to be saved on your either local machine or your hospital servers, or, you know, those. There's nothing in Pentaho that can save these type of things, because they're outside the tool itself.
Okay, so when you are in Pentaho, whether you're doing pivot tables or these big tables here, you will save that kind of locally. When we get into the SciQ, there would be a way to save and share a template for others in your organization. But if you're doing it off of the detailed data extract, then you save it in Excel.
That's correct. Yep. So in the sake of time, I may skip those examples and come back to them, because they're really just, or maybe I could just do one. Maybe I'll do one instead of all 3 of them, just so we're not going to miss our deadline here. So one of the examples we had was, what do you call it, deaths, I guess, Lisa?
Correct.
Where you had an existing report that that you wanted to try to mimic from the old system. And so this is like all the columns that you cared about. And, you know, similar to what I just went through, is you just would, you know, have one tab for your actual raw data, we call it, but the data that gets downloaded from Pentaho. and then you just overlay it, and then it would just show up as you overlay it. So as the example of what I already did before, you know, these would be gone. I guess I shouldn't have deleted those. Let me see here. Is there a way just to clear it? Oh, here we go, clear contents. All right. And then if I was going to use the one back here as the example, as I just downloaded the latest 2015 records, I can come into here, highlight the whole detail extract of my saved template, and then now I'll have those additional records now back in. So we're just trying to, again, find mechanisms that will allow you guys to be able to get to the raw and the core data that you really care about for your hospital. One of the things that we did do to help kind of quickly identify these formulas is we literally just went through each of the detail extract in its own reports and just mark down what are the actual columns. So there's this MS as the column in the report, and RE, et cetera. It made it a lot easier for me to actually update these formulas and these direct formulas. So
Okay,
so what I'm going to do
would be column letter would be probably the best way to go find that stuff.
Yep. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to Saiku. Let's just see here. I'll just switch it to the slide real quick here. So this is what we call create your own reports, and the intention of this particular tool or product is it's really, in my opinion, used when you get these ad hoc requests of trying to understand a quick summary or aggregation information because it's something that's being asked from me that I don't normally get asked, but I need a fairly quick and easy way to get the information. And then, more importantly, once I do use the information at the aggregate level, I am allowed to actually drill down to see, well, of that count of 3, who are those 3 actual births? And so this tool allows you to do that. The constraints of this tool is that it doesn't at the moment allow you to actually save a particular design, if you will, of a cross-tab report at the detail level, and mainly that's driven based on security. So we're trying to figure alternatives around this, but for the moment, because of that limitation, the tool for Saiku, again, is really useful for these quick trying to find answers to questions and to drill down to identify these particular patients. I'd recommend the detail extract being leveraged more at the level that I mentioned before of understanding what my detail information is. It's a template that I can reuse monthly over and over and over again. So if it's something that's going to be used on a reoccurring purpose at the detail level, I'd recommend you do the detail extract. If it's something that you're going to use on a monthly basis at the aggregate level of counts, you can actually use the pivot table with the detail extract, or you can use Saiku. Either one will satisfy that requirement. Let's see. So basic functionalities. So basically, you can identify kind of your date range that you're looking for. You obviously you can choose between one or many hospitals depending on your hospital system or health system. And then you can also determine what types of counts I'm actually looking for. Am I looking at the birth event level or the actual deliveries themselves? So it really depends on the information you're looking for. It also allows you to save these particular templates, again, at the summary level to be used, again, on a monthly basis if it is a report that is needed for that purpose. So, so we'll get into the quick demo of that. So create your own crosstab here. So I will switch my screen again to...
Now again, while he's switching his screen, the nice thing on Saiku is it does allow you to see your entire system. So if you are setting up something like this, then anyone in the system can, and you've saved it, you can get at information for anywhere within your system. And by doing filters and so on, if you only want to see, say, one facility or whatever, you can do that. And also, when he's talking about something on the fly, this can be really good. I was just asked a question the other day, hey, for the first half of the year, how many deliveries did our independent physicians have? Oftentimes we're looking at our employed physicians, but we needed a quick count on what that was, and I was able to get that and send that off to the person who needed it. You know, in under 10 minutes I had an answer for the person.
Great. So what we'll do is I'll show you kind of, if you're starting from scratch and you've never created one before, you would start at the home page and you would go to Create New, and then you would go to Saiku Analytics and click on that. And then what you would do here is you would click on, there's these quick links, and you just go create a new query. And then this will give you kind of the starting template of just kind of a blank one. And then what you can do here is select the cube. So Saiku reports are built on cubes that are set up. So at the moment, to kind of not overwhelm everyone, we created one cube that represents the condensed detailed cube, or the condensed detailed extract. So the 134 fields extract is what this cube represents. And once our goal is obviously to create another cube that's for the overall, the 450, if not more, fields of the overall report. But for the moment, just to kind of get people's feet wet, we created this condensed one. So you would select that cube. And then very similar to pivot tables, you have, you know, the measures. And the measures here is kind of the core of the data, the things that you're actually going to count. So similar to the pivot tables, you know, in Excel, it's kind of like that bottom right-hand corner called values.
Basically, kind of moving over the columns now. So we moved over the infant date of birth year, and then we're going to look for HIV tested, which I think it's on the bottom here. Do you know where that is offhand? Is it Lisa?
And I think it's in current pregnancy.
Okay. There we go. And then we'll move that in the columns there as well. And then we'll do primary OB, which should be...
Is under number 13 for attendance.
There we go. Thank you. And then, you know, it gives you the kind of the quick counts based on how you just created the crosstab. So this basically kind of get it going. Once you actually move something into the rows and you have it into the measures, then that's kind of where the report itself will be generated. And from that point, you can start to kind of move things or add things, and the report itself will generate, kind of refresh itself so you can get updated counts or possibly updated columns and rows. The other thing that I mentioned before is you're also able to drill down. So as an example, if you're like, for this particular provider, in 2014 deliveries, there was 3 that were yes. You can actually do a drill down, and by clicking on up here, it's called drill through on a cell. So it's probably hard to see this, but on the top it looks like it's a little arrow pointing down. There's actually 2 of them. One is an arrow pointing down that actually creates a CSV report, which basically when you click on this and you click on the cell that you want to look into, it'll actually generate an Excel file for you if you need to kind of get that information and put it into a PowerPoint or create some type of graph or something. But in this case, I'm just going to show you the one that doesn't do that, which you just click on that button, and then you just click on the cell you want to look for. And then this is where you want to say, well, what is it that I want to see for all the records? So let's just say I want to look at all the mothers, all the mother information, the infant, and that's all I really care about. And then it'll kind of give a pop-up box to actually show you the three births, if you will, or excuse me, in this case deliveries, 3 deliveries that represent those 3 that we're seeing. So again, like I said, you can, if it's an on-the-fly type of thing where you just want to quickly see information to record it or send back an email, this is a quick way of doing that. If you wanted to actually do an Excel spreadsheet version, you can actually do that by clicking on the arrow to the right of the drill down I just did.
Now,
and then to kind of get the drill down mode off.
Yeah. Can you show in 01 that system authority
yes,
there? Right now, you probably just have Ancilla, but...
That's correct, yes.
System
but yeah, so you can actually, if you have multiple facilities, you can actually move over your facility name, which I guess I moved it to the column, and you can actually put that in the rows or column. It really doesn't matter which way you do it, but yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's a good way for systems that have more than 1 hospitals.
Another thing,
and you can also move that.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other thing is you may want to start with a facility name to get what you're looking for into your crosstab first, even if you are going to do healthcare system, because what I've found is as it's churning, looking for all kinds of information, if you, for example, if you're from a big system, it's going to be a while for it to look for it. So you might want to bring down a single one first just to set it up and then add them in. Because once you're in there, you can click on any of these parts and add or subtract how much of it you want to run, if that makes sense. So for example, infant date of birth year, you could click on that and only find the 2014s later if you wanted.
That's correct. Thanks, Lisa. Just to show kind of how dynamic this this tool is if you wanted to say, okay, that's good, I need to know that information. I just want to quickly see, what's the method of delivery by attendant as an example. So what you can do there is, remove this particular field, so HIV tested, get that out of there. You can, all you do is there's a little, if you highlight that, kind of that, oops, I didn't mean to do that. If you can drag it out and it'll actually move it out of there. Or if you want to delete everything out of the row or the column, you can just click on the X and it'll delete everything out of there then. So what I'll do here is do date of birth on the columns, and then I'm going to clear the rows, And then I'm going to add attendant, and then final. Let's see, where's the final route method delivery? Is that in
14, delivery.
Probably. All right, so then put that there. And then this will give you, a quick, again, count of the information. So the thing that I really love about this tool is the quickness of doing things like this. And you don't have to bring down a detail extract to do this. And it's just very quick and nimble, which is kind of nice. Now, if you wanted to save this template, let's just say an example that you want to use this in the future and you didn't want to have to recreate the fact that this is the columns and these are the rows that you wanted to do, you can actually click on the little Save Query icon here, and then it will ask you, where do you want to save it, and underneath Home, there will always be two folders. There will be the folder that represents your ID, that's you, and that would only, if you save it in that particular directory, only you would be able to access that. You can also save a report out to your facility or your health system level, and then anyone in your health system would be able to leverage this report. So if you wanted to share this template with someone else, you can put it into your folder there and you would be able to see that. So, I can go and click on that and then just say method of delivery. 2, and then you just hit save. And then now that template is saved. So if we exit out of here, you'll notice two things if you go back to the home page. One is, well, I guess normally if you open it up, it'll save it underneath recents. I wonder if I have to refresh this. But if you go back to Browse Files and you want to open it up again, you go to Home, and then you would go into the folder that you saved it off on. So we saved it off on Ancilla Create Your Own. And then you'll notice this is the one I just created, and you can open it right back up. And what it'll do is it'll show you it in kind of more view mode. And what you need to do from that standpoint is if you want to change the date range, and that's typically what people would do, you would have to click on the edit icon, and I'll show you that in a second once it loads up. So you can actually then use the information, or excuse me, update the information for the time period that you care about. So it's still loading here. All right, here it is. So as I stated before, it'll show you in kind of a display mode. And in this case, what you can do is you can, kind of run the query again with the updated information. What I mean by that is if you want to keep everything the same, you want to keep the date range the same if you had a filter there, or whatever it is that you want to keep as it was, you literally can just hit the play button and it would refresh with whatever new data has changed since you have looked at it last. If you want to change the date range, there's a little pencil area, and that's where you click on Edit Query, and you'll go back to the Edit screen, and then this is where you can update anything you need, whether it's rows or columns or date range, etc.
So again, that does allow you to have sort of a template that you can then go in and use. And again, the advantage here is if you or a colleague in the system has saved something, everyone can have access to it who has access to SciQ. Now, people would like to see one more time a recap of how, at least how you get back into SciQ for the first time, because I think that's pretty new for people. Could you please show that again?
Absolutely.
From the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. When you actually open up a report, it'll always show up in your recent tab, which is kind of nice. The other thing you can also do is you can actually save things to favorites, that if you have a recurring report, you can actually go down here and get to it in the future. But to Lisa's question, you would go back. You would always start with home, and then you would click on create new, and then you would click on SciQ Analytics. And then it should bring up the kind of the base template, if you will, where then again you would select the cube that, you know, again, there's only one cube at the moment, but our goal is to create another cube that's the kind of the full extract. And you know, you would just be able to select the cube and then kind of go from there. I apologize, I think I have some real bad network issues here. It's really slow at the moment. So you would just say create a new query, if that's what you're going to do. And then you would just select the cube.
And again,
then
it's
you're
always
kind of back to the, kind of the template. Is there any, I mean, we're at the point where we're at the end, and actually time has expired. If those that can stay on a little bit longer, we can answer any questions that are still there.
One question that has come up is a person says, what if I don't have the create button available? What do I need to do to get access?
It's a very good question. I think what you need to do is contact your security person that is related to Peridata and request that your system be added as create your own report. And then once we get that request, we set your health system up, and then the security officer that's related to your health system would have to give you permission kind of in your role to be able to access that. And if you have questions related to that, feel free to call us.
Okay, so that's call Ancilla if you have a further question about that, but it sounds like that's on your system administrator side within your organization as opposed to the Ancilla side. But they can definitely talk you through like what kind of security access it would be and that type of thing. Well, and hopefully this gave a brief overview. I know for some people I can feel kind of overwhelming. We will have these slides available for you, and again, we're always looking for feedback as to what else would help. We would like in the future to do a few more things, and so getting feedback from you as to what else is important to go through, what types of questions or solutions are you looking for would be welcomed. Alan and I have our contact information here. Again, if it's a technical or support issue, that's Ancilla. If you have a general data question or a content question or suggestion, that would probably be something that you could send to me. Oh, one other question that did come up for those who are still able to stay on. Can you show us how to change the date range in the Create Your Own?
Sure.
So I think that would be like I only wanted to see 2014, or I wanted to add some months to it. But when you're clicking on the the section so that they can see how it opens and closes.
Yeah. So basically, in this case, let's just say we look at infant date of birth year. You can actually just click on the actual field. When you click on the field, another pop-up box will show up. And then this is where you can select, the infant date of birth year that you're looking for. So if you just want to look at just 2015, you select 2015 and you hit OK. And then you should be, then this thing should filter, or let me see here. I think I got to move it over here just a second, 2015. And then hit OK. Yeah, you got to make sure you click the arrow to make sure you move it over to the inclusion. And then you would see just 2015 information.
And then if we wanted to go
And you
by,
can do that with any of them. Yeah.
right, you could add then months too and bring it over and just click on the ones you wanted to see. That's kind of how I was able to go after the first 6 months of the year or whatever it was they wanted me to look at. Right now we're only looking at year, but we could go into the infant and bring over the months as well. But that's how any
Correct.
one of these, as Alan said, you can click on them and further drill down to which things you're looking for. Okay, just to recap, providing instructions to get access to SciQ. If this is something that you don't have, you'll want to talk to your own internal IT people, whoever gives you security access. They've probably given you access to Peridata in general, but perhaps not to the role for create your own reports. Did I answer that correctly, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, basically, just it's the security officer that is in Peridata is the one you should contact. It's really a permission thing because we don't have the authorization just to give anyone the rights of this because it's just kind of how the agreements are set up.
Right. There may be a few people on the line who, prior to this time, did not have access to create your own reports from the olden days. And so you may need to have that to get into the SciQ side of things. So that's a good thing.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we do need to wrap things up. And you got that contact information earlier for Lisa and Alan. If you have any further questions or if you would like to send a question to WAPC, we can get it where it needs to go as well. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thanks very much to Lisa and Alan for providing such a great instructional webinar today. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.